What is up, Only Playbook fans? We are back. Shovit is back. 21 Pilots was last night. Hope you had a blast, Shovit. I'm so glad that you didn't get to join us on the episode where you got a chance to talk a lot of shit because the Steelers won. You got to talk a lot of shit because you beat me in fantasy. But too bad. We turned that page. No. We're talking about week 2, man. Week 1 is over. Week 1 is over. This is the week 2 preview episode. Week 1 is behind us. If you listen to that episode, thank you guys so much. I'm Sweetcar. I should show it. What's going on, guys?
I just want to add that last week could have been the best week of football for me, like with the Steelers winning, 2 fantasy, wins in all my leagues. If it wasn't for the fucking Broncos, like if they would have won, I would have won pick'em leagues. I mean, everything. It would have been, bets too. Damn, dude. Dan Hackett, dude, that guy is something else.
Yeah, it's a tall order to ask for a sweep with everything, right? Like fantasy, betting, pick'em, Survivor League, like random bet I met with my coworker at work one day. Like you just can't have everything. That's just ridiculous. But
I want it all.
Me and Shisho were on the opposite end of it. Actually, no, I think Shisho won his leagues in the other ones. I was the only, like, if the Vikings hadn't won, I would have been like, wow, what a fucking awful week 1. But we're still here. Again, what did I say last week, Shovit? If I won, I was going to talk a lot of shit. If I lost, it's just 1 week, bro. It's just 1 week. So we're moving on. We're talking about week 2 today. We got to preview all of these games that are coming up. A lot to talk about. Let's dive right into it with water coolers on. Waiver wire season is upon us. We just spent a lot of time talking about our lack of sleep, our weird sleep schedules, our alarms at 4 a.m. To pick up waiver players. But if you did pick up waiver players last night, chances are you probably picked up some of these guys, but we'll run through some of these guys. Some of these guys may not have been picked up yet because they don't, deserve a waiver claim, but they are deserving of maybe being talked about and being picked up and stashed on your bench for the future. First things first, obviously, running back Jeff Wilson. He's probably the biggest waiver wire pickup of week 1. Shisho, congrats. You got Jeff Wilson. You got your guy. He's going to probably be starting for like 8 to 10 weeks. So I
went from having the only player. I have 3 leagues. I had Mike Davis in all 3 leagues. That was the only player I had in all 3 leagues. I replaced him with Jeff Wilson in all 3 leagues. So I'm pretty happy right now.
Yeah, I would be too. I think Mike Davis should just get cut from the NFL after his performance in week 1. But he's a popular pickup, obviously, I think, because of Elijah Mitchell being injured 7 to 8 weeks or something like that. He's gone. We know 49ers are a run-heavy offense, so the volume is definitely going to be there. So that's obviously a solid pickup for anybody that went out and got Jeff Wilson. He was probably somebody you definitely needed to put a waiver claim on. Darrell Henderson, obviously, I'm surprised he's not getting drafted more if you're playing in smaller leagues or, there's really not much bench stashage because you have 2 quarterback leagues or 3 flex, whatever the case may be. He's still available in 55% of leagues. And, as of now, he's the starting running back. We don't know what the situation holds for Cam Akers, so definitely pick that guy up. Shovit, talk to me a little bit, if you want to add anything about Pittsburgh's running back, Jaylen Warren. Seems like he's the backup to Najee Harris. We know Najee's already dealing with some injury. Do you think there's some promise in getting somebody in that backfield if Najee's out?
Absolutely. So Najee says he's going to play, but, it's going to depend on the practice and how he performs, and Tomlin will decide whether he'll play or not. But the guy that you want to pick up in substitute of Najee Harris is Jaylen Warren. When Najee Harris was out, Jaylen Warren came in during the overtime. And even though they have Benny Snell, looks like Warren's the guy, the rookie that they like and that they are going to go with. So if anything, as a handcuff for Najee Harris, you need to go out and get Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, and we've seen Benny Snell for a couple years now, and he is what he is. Like that. He's just kind of the depth piece, the veteran back. I mean, he's probably not even a veteran. He's probably only been in the league for like 3-4 years, but just been stashed as a backup most of his career. Yeah. But Jaylen Warren, definitely, I'm sure a guy that's out there because no signs have indicated that Najee's not going to play. But like you said, if there is going to be lingering injuries, he came into the season with injuries. He got injured week 1, so definitely somebody you want to handcuff. Saints wide receiver Jarvis Landry is still available in 54% of leagues. I get why, obviously, his performances with the Browns, he was just kind of a possession receiver, lacked getting into the end zone, but now it's a different story, different offense. Famous Jameis, all he loves to do is air it out. So definitely a possibility for, multiple receivers in that offense, along with Kamara to be fantasy relevant. And after the targets and the catches that he put up week 1, definitely is worth a look. So if he is a free agent, which is kind of crazy, definitely pick him up and put him on your bench. Another wide receiver, Commanders wide receiver, Curtis Samuel, pretty much becoming Debo 2.0, sharing the same last name. He's available in 95% of leagues. He ran the ball 4 times. He caught, I think 8 catches or something like that, 55 yards and a touchdown. So he's definitely relevant in that offense. Definitely somebody that's worth a look. I know obviously they have Terry McLaurin and they have John Dodson, but he seems like the guy that, they at least utilize in the Swiss Army knife. And anytime you're getting a receiver that can rush and they use him for out of the backfield, he's worth an extra look in fantasy. Chargers wide receiver show that you were hyping this guy up. I was giving you shit because he was a 29-year-old veteran and is like, what is he really going to do? But Keenan Allen goes down. Mike Williams is a no-show. DeAndre Carter put on a show. I mean, he only caught like 3 passes, but they were deep passes. He looked quick, and they were very, very timely catches, right? So in timely situations, rather than looking at like Mike Williams, Justin Herbert went to DeAndre Carter, and he's available in 95% of leagues. So if Keenan Allen's going to be lingering on the injury report all season, we know Mike Williams typically misses like 3 to 5 games a year just because he gets hobbled up. And also he's a boomer bust guy like me and Shisho talked about last week. Who knows if DeAndre Carter is going to be the next like possession guy for them that they rely on. So definitely worth a look. Again, 95% of leagues is a lot of leagues that he's out there.
Another guy to look into is Joshua Palmer, also a receiver for the Chargers. He might be a good person that you want to keep on your bench in lieu of those injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last, quarterbacks. I'm one of the few that suffered some quarterback fate. Dak Prescott is who I drafted, and he is gone for a while now. So looking at a couple of quarterbacks that are free agents, Jameis Winston, we just talked about him. He's going to be in that offense where he's got a lot of weapons. They love to throw the ball. He loves to air it out. You're going to get your fair share of interceptions, but if you kind of put that aside and you calculate the difference, he's definitely going to throw for a lot of yards and probably throw a lot of touchdowns. So definitely worth a look as a quarterback. Vikings quarterback, Shisho, you got the jersey on. Mr. Kirk Cousins himself, he is also a free agent in most leagues. If week one was just kind of a glimpse of what kind of offense this team can really be about, we still haven't scratched the surface. So there is a world where Kirk Cousins, work cars himself into a nice fantasy option. And then, I don't even know why I have this guy on here, but whatever. Commanders quarterback, Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is also a free agent. He does have a relatively easier schedule compared to like other quarterbacks that sit in free agency and fantasy. So he had a decent week one, threw for like 4 touchdowns, I think, threw 2 interceptions. But at the end of the day, again, he produced and he has a lot of weapons. We've just been talking about them. So there is a world where Carson Wentz actually also puts himself in a solid status. Hopefully, if you're a player that has, you probably have a lot of people probably have really good quarterbacks that they're never going to need to pick these guys up. But if you're a Dak Prescott owner, if you're trying to think of, what other quarterbacks would you need to worry about after week one?
It's only week one. You're going to have to start worrying about it soon enough, right? These guys are not players you're going to start every week as of now. Jameis Winston, you already know the potential. Carson Wentz, he always does Carson Wentz things. That's just, you're going to take a gamble. Kirk Cousins has been in the top 12 in fantasy quarterbacks the last 4 years. So there's a solid floor there. You're going to get what you get out of Kirk Cousins, and you might get some really good games too. So out of those 3, if you want some consistency out of your quarterback position, someone that's in the top 12 every single year, I would probably go with Kirk Cousins if you needed a fill in for a week.
This is so funny because in my other league, I have Jameis Winston and Justin Fields, and I'm literally battling with these 3 quarterbacks of who to start. I am going with Carson Wentz because they're playing the Detroit Lions. But yeah, there's definitely a strong case to be made for any of these quarterbacks to stream this week.
Yeah, and again, like you said, these aren't going to be quarterbacks that you're just blindly starting every week. Even Kirk, he's playing Philly on the road this week, right? So you're probably going to temper your expectations at least until we've seen more. But nonetheless, yesterday I was thinking about this and I was like, that Paul Rudd meme or video where it's like, how did we end up here? I don't know. That's how I feel because I'm trying to decide between Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston. And it's only week 2. It's only week 2 of fantasy football. So like, I'm fucking pissed, but that's what I get for waiting on a quarterback and getting stuck with a guy like Dak Prescott, who I hated and got forced to draft, but it is what it is. Again, it's a long season. Maybe Dak will be back. Maybe I can stream a quarterback all season and the rest of my team does really well. So we'll see. That's all I had for waivers. Did you guys have anybody else of note?
Robbie Anderson, we talked about him earlier. Just the volume is a little eye-catching, and he was the number 1 targeted player on that offense. Baker Mayfield maybe found something there. We already know what DJ Moore can do, but we don't know. We don't know the Rappaport. We don't know the chemistry yet. They were kind of in a weird situation. CMC wasn't used much. We know CMC is going to get used more. And Baker can definitely open up the whole field way more than any of the other quarterbacks have so far. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be like a solid month of figuring out what to do, and solid month of maybe thinking about trading CMC while his stock's high. Just throwing that out there. Not while his stock is low, but technically his stock is still high. He's a weird player, right? Like people still value him, but what if he gets?
They're still infatuated by him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, just think about it. But don't give away him for nothing either. Like you got to win this trade if you try to get rid of CMC, but he's going to be fine. It's just the injuries, which is very likely. So, I don't know if I want a player like that on my team.
Yeah, and I think the Baker Mayfield situation changes things up too. Like you and I talked about when we were recording last episode, Baker's initial eyes always go downfield. And in the past, a CMC-led offense, it was literally like CMC, where is he running and how do we get him the ball? And Baker likes to throw the ball deep, like not even DJ Moore on his like crossing routes on his ends or anything. It was Robbie Anderson, and Robbie Anderson's like notorious for just running go routes because he's super fast. So I think you're right. I think you can still trade CMC for immense value because everyone's going to be like, oh, it's just week one. It's a new quarterback. They're getting into the system and stuff. But his usage was super low. The injury concerns are there. And at the end of the day, if his value is still sky high in the eyes of certain people, you can probably get like 2 or 3 quality starters for him to replace him on your starting roster. So definitely a case to be made there for sure. That's it for waiver wires and water cooler talk. Let's jump into the rundown. Another exciting Thursday night football matchup here to kick off this week. Chargers are going to be traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Chiefs at home favored by 3.5. Big over under 54.5. Expecting a ton of points in this game as well. Things I'm obviously looking out for is these are two teams that are destined to take it really, really far in the playoffs this year, right? Chiefs basically are like a Super Bowl or bust team every year ever since they've drafted Mahomes, and Chargers are a team that are looking to take the next step. So this is the first really, really big early season test for both of these teams to meet up in week 2. Obviously, Chargers are going to be on the road. Patty Mahomes threw for 5 touchdowns on the road last week, so now he gets to play at home. So it's like, how much better can he get? That's a little scary to think about. And I think with the way the Chargers defense played last week against Derek Carr, you want to see if, that defense is for real or, again, it was just Derek Carr, right? So if that defense can do anything to disrupt Patrick Mahomes like they were doing with Derek Carr, the Chargers are going to be for real because they've always had offenses. They've always just kind of lacked defenses. So that's going to be kind of what I'm watching out for. Still waiting to see kind of the receiving situation for LA get fleshed out. Is Mike Williams truly going to be like the way he was last week? Where he's going to be super boomer bust. Like you said, it's guys like Joshua Palmer, guys like DeAndre Carter. Are those guys going to step up? And honestly, if you're a guy who drafted Eckler, you probably got him like top 5 picks. So you're probably going to want to see a little bit more as well. So let's see how this game script favors some of those players on the Chargers side. And then on the Chiefs side, it's the usual suspects, right? Shisho, you and I talked about Pacheco getting the carries and leading the backfield. Obviously, it's because they were up a ton. So CAH looks like the running back and starting running back there. And I don't think there's any concerns about that. He also catches passes and he caught 2 touchdowns last week. And then we obviously know Kelsey's there, but I want to see the consistency that I think we are going to see from Juju. 5 catches, 50 yards should be pretty much guaranteed every week with how much the Chiefs throw the ball and the fact that they have Patrick Mahomes. I think his ceiling is, 80 yards and virtually a touchdown, like a coin toss that he's going to score a touchdown every week because Patty's going to throw 40 to 50 touchdowns this year, right? And even if Kelsey caught 20 of them, right? Even if Kelsey had a historic season for a tight end, there's still so many touchdowns to be delved out that Juju's going to have to catch 8 to 12 of them. So I'm really expecting big things from Juju. Let's see if that consistency continues. Those are the things that I'm looking out for. What do you guys have for Thursday Night Football?
I feel like a lot of people are forgetting Patrick Mahomes. It's funny, like I say that, but that first game last week, we looked at Josh Allen and we're like, GOAT, the greatest, he's going to win MVP. And then like Patty Mahomes just easily to non-Tyreek Hill led wide receiver core did way better than him, just like he didn't even have to run. He's like, watch me, just do what a quarterback does, pass the ball. So like, I think people need to understand, like in this game, you have the threat of a dual running, throwing and running quarterback. You always have that threat. It makes you a more dynamic player, but nothing will beat a pure passer that's really good at his job. So, I think eyes on Patrick Mahomes. Let's see what happens when he gets pressured, because like we saw last week, I almost said Bosa brothers, but Bosa and Khalil Mack, this defense is for real. I'm telling you guys, this defense is for real. But they may get exposed this week, but this is the perfect time to pick them up on the waiver wire when somebody will drop them. There's going to be like a 20 to 30% drop rate on the Chargers defense because of this game. So I'm just like salivating, waiting for the Chargers to get kind of, a little screwed up because of Patrick Mahomes and then just pounce on it.
Yeah. Over under 54.5 seems kind of high. Obviously, just on paper, the matchup excites you in the sense that points should be scored. But that is a big number. I know we expected the Chargers to score a decent amount of points last week, and they didn't really score a ton, 24, but not as much as you expected to hit the over. So I'm tempering my expectations a little bit here. So the line is a little iffy, even 3.5 right outside that field goal. I don't feel great about taking them. So I don't know which way I'd lean there in terms of betting, but nonetheless, Thursday Night Football is destined for an amazing matchup.
All right, our next game up, we have the Jets at Browns. Cleveland's favored by 6. The over-under's at 40. We saw what the Jets did last week, right? I am just strictly watching the Jets wide receiver core this game. That's what I'm going to get out of this game. There's a lot of points to be had here because there's going to be down every single game, majority of the game. And Flacco threw for like over 50 passes. I mean, that's a lot of who's catching those? Everybody's catching those. That's the answer. Everybody's catching these. And they got the youngster Wilson ready. If you saw him play, if you got a chance to watch him play, it looks like CD Lamb out there with those moves, and with the 50 plus targets coming from Flacco sucks. Let's not get it twisted, but he can still throw the ball. He can still throw an accurate football. It's just that when he gets hobbled up, he's just going to fall down like the old Big Ben did. He's pretty much like the similar situation right now. So Jets wide receivers, what I'm looking at, Flacco was hit 11 times last week. And, that line sucks, and Myles Garrett's coming out of the edge. So you can only imagine what the Browns defense fantasy points are going to look like this game. I am going to be all over the Browns defense. I wasted a waiver wire pick to get the Browns defense this game. But I am a little scared, and I am not scared by many things when it comes to like these shitty teams, but why the running back field for the Jets looked amazing last week, led by Michael Carter. He just looked like we talked about this last week. He looked like a pure runner, pure catcher. His moves are amazing. He dropped that one touchdown at the goal line that could have just, put him on the map. A lot of people would be talking about him, but that's what I like. I like the fact that he dropped that because I got to witness that. And a lot of people don't even know that happened. Right. So it's like, those are the players that you kind of have to like keep an eye out for. And the obvious thing we need to talk about this game is Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are just always going to do Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb things, and nobody's going to stop them. One thing of note, almost every run Nick Chubb had was on the outside. Nobody saw that coming. We've always seen Chubb as like down the middle guy, whatever, but something changed. The offense has changed a little bit. There was a lot of outside runs, which he just tore apart. I'm glad they learned their lesson. Let's save this guy, this bruiser of a bulldog we have. And let's just elongate his life by letting him run outside, making moves against little tinier cornerbacks rather than big fat linemen, right? Sounds like a pretty obvious decision to me, but I guess they're trying to implement that. And then Hunt just catching passes, running the ball. Hunt is amazing. I feel so bad for him that he doesn't get to start on a team, but he would easily be an RB1 anywhere else, most places. And then last thing, stay away from Cleveland wide receivers. You can get sucked into the People Jones on your waiver wire, 9 targets, I believe. That's significant. And
I think 11. Was it 9? Might have
probably.
Been 11.
No, I said around 9, so it's probably 11, whatever. But it is Brissett. It's not the same quarterback, so we have to watch out for new changes, and Brissett is a new change. So we'll see what happens. I take like 2-3 more games to watch this situation, but this situation is not anywhere in my top 15 things I must watch out for this week. Even if Peoples Jones gets 20 points, I will not be putting a claim for him. I just won't. So whoever wants to take a piece of that, go ahead. I am staying away.
Yeah, the Browns are scary, man. That dual running back and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I think, had like 2 touchdowns last game too. So for people that got Kareem Hunt, I mean, that's like RB1 numbers right there. Awesome. So next up, we've got the Washington Commanders going to Ford Field to play against the Detroit Lions. The Lions at 2.5, favoring Detroit for the first time in 24 games, which is crazy, right? I wonder what the record there is. The over-under is at 49. So some of the guys I'm looking at, obviously we talked about Carson Wentz. He is a potential streamer start for this week, playing against a Detroit Lions defense, which has not been anything the past couple of years, right? The last year they were in the bottom top 5 of defenses. So you have a favorable matchup with Carson Wentz. And then also Antonio Gibson is a must start. The Lions struggled really bad against the run against the Eagles. Eagles did have Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders, that dual, the quarterback that can run, that kind of made things a little bit difficult for them. But Antonio Gibson is a good start. And then on the Lions side, obviously you have your usual suspects, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamal Williams. And then the other thing to mention is DeAndre Swift did miss practice on Wednesday. Justin Jackson got moved up. So just something to monitor. If you're starting DeAndre Swift, you just want to be careful. And do you want
to call him elite yet, or are we still not going to do that?
I think we can definitely call him elite. Like
let's wait let's wait till he plays 2 weeks in a row. I don't like
That's
that he's
true,
already
too.
on
That's
the
true.
injury report.
That's
Yeah.
also true.
He's
Yeah.
literally
Injuries.
notorious for getting hurt, and it's week 2, and he's already on the injury report.
Yeah.
And not that he's just on the injury report. You said they brought up Justin Jackson. So, like, usually they don't
Yeah.
elevate somebody from the practice squad just for, like, one day. Like, that
Mhm.
doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
So, definitely something to keep an eye on. But, yeah, when he's on the field, bro, that dude, you put it perfectly, Shisho. He's literally a younger Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. In terms of this matchup, I feel like these two teams are very similar. They both have poor run defense. They both have a high flying offense based off of week 1, right? Carson Wentz was one of the guys one of two guys that threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. The other guy is Patrick Mahomes. So to be on the same sentence as Patrick Mahomes is kind of impressive, at least for week 1. Maybe a little bit of overreaction on my end. But they have a favorable matchup. So the Lions do have a strong offensive line. And I think that if they're able to control the run game, they should come out with a win here. Although the all-pro center Frank Ragnow and left tackle Taylor Decker did miss practice as well. So offensive line, battle of the trenches. If you're going to miss your all-pro centers and left tackle, that could be an issue. Should be an all-around good game. I'm expecting high scoring by both of these teams.
Yeah, the one thing to note about all these guys like missing practice on Wednesday, right? 1, it's week 1. 2, it's starting last year. It's a longer season than it's ever been, right? So I think they're going to all teams do a good job of, like, when you're really, really good or you're a veteran, you're probably just not going to practice on Wednesday or Thursday or even Friday maybe. And so you have to, if you're a guy that is super novice and you just look at your lineup and you see the questionable or something next to it and you're like, oh crap, he's hurt. You need to do a little bit more digging than that. Like a guy like DeAndre Swift, he's young, he's hungry, right? So he's not usually going to miss practice. So the fact that he's on the injury report on Wednesday warrants you to be like, okay, I need to be in the know about this. But if you're looking at other guys, like just an example, like Julio Jones, right? If Julio Jones ends up on the injury report, you're probably like, okay, well, he's probably just getting rest because he doesn't really need to practice. Yeah, and they're probably just trying to save his legs for the game so they can run more end arounds with him. So yeah. I think it's going to be really important to differentiate, because there's going to be a lot of guys that don't practice. So just before we get into a situation where like everybody's just not practicing on Wednesday and we're all freaking out, that's one thing that I want to preface. But no, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, sorry, I want one more thing to add on that game. I'm really, really worried that it's taken 24 games for them to be the favorite. And all of a sudden now the pressure is on. They are officially, in Vegas's eyes, in the eyes of the public, the better team. So they should win, right? That automatically changes the entire perception of everything. So like being the underdog, being the guy that everybody roots against, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're kind of playing a certain way. And all of a sudden now you're the team that's supposed to win this game. There's a different pressure with that. So let's see how they handle that. I'm not totally going to write off the Commanders yet either, because we know they were supposed to have a great defense last year. They sucked. Chase Young got hurt, and so their pass rush was just god-awful, and he's hurt again this year. So maybe their pass rush is just going to continue to be god-awful. But I liked what I saw from the weapons. We talked about the receivers already like too many times this episode already. So we know that they have weapons that they can compete. So like for the first time, the Lions are favorites. Don't let us down and just fucking lose miserably, because then all of a sudden you're going to be like, what was all that for? So definitely
I got a bold prediction. I got a bold prediction this game. I think the MVP of this game is going to be
Antonio Gibson.
The Lions fans. I think they're going to go crazy, and I think there's going to be a lot of penalties, a lot of not hearing the play call. This shit's about to get crazy up in Detroit, at least from my sources, from what I'm hearing.
Check those sources. All right, that takes us over to the Bucs and Saints divisional matchup. This matchup always screams out to me because the last year or 2 years now, the Saints have had the Buccaneers numbered. The Saints destroy Tom Brady. So Tom Brady cannot play well against the Saints for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. And we're looking at a Saints team that week 1 gave up 26 points to the Falcons, who are led by Marcus Mariota, Cordero Patterson, and Drake London. And Kyle Pitts was virtually a no-show. So if that tells you something, maybe this is not the same Saints defense that it was years ago. Or in fact, maybe it's just one of those matchup things where every year you have a team that just matches up really well against another team, no matter how good or bad either team is. And it just poses for like a tough test for the better team. And so that's kind of one thing that I'm going to be looking out for is Tom Brady's probably like, I'm sick and tired of having absolute stinkers against the Saints, and it's a different team. And again, knowing that they have Jameis Winston, there is an opportunity for the Bucs to get shorter fields with turnovers, things like that. So those are the things I'm definitely going to be watching out for. Leonard Fournette seems like he's just got on a mission. Shova, you just got an absolute steal in the draft with Lenny. So I hated how they used him last week because I was playing against you, but for Leonard Fournette and for that offense, like I love how they use him. Like they actually use him as like a focal point, and he's really, really good. He's produced, so he deserves that. And then we talked about it last week to show Julio Jones looks young. He doesn't. We believe finally after just seeing 1 week that it wasn't the fact that he was getting old. It was just the fact that he was hurt, kept trying to play through injury, was never 100%. And I think that was more so his demise than the fact that he's like legitimately getting old. He's still 29. I think, is he even 30 yet? He might.
I want to say 30, yes. Right? I want to say
he has to be 30. Yeah, he has to be 30. I don't know what I'm drinking, but nonetheless, he looks like he's like 25. So running end arounds with like 30 plus year receiver. Yeah, twice. You know the last person to do that? Antonio fucking Brown. For which team? Yep. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's the same guy playing the same role. It's just nothing changed. Yeah, nothing's changed. Bucs are favored on the road though by 3 points. So playing in the dome, interesting. Over under 44. Just based on week one alone, I do lean over. I just don't know if the Saints defense is the same Saints defense that we've been accustomed to seeing. And I think Tampa Bay has a bounce back week after that shit show of a week one where, you know, in all honesty, they were never really forced to try to score because the Cowboys were just so abysmal. Yeah. So those are kind of the things I'm going to be watching out for there. Otherwise, you got all of your usual suspects. Maybe seeing if Landry can continue to sustain that, if Michael Thomas can continue to sustain kind of the level he played last week, or Chris Olave is going to take the next step there. And then obviously game script aside, we want to see Alvin Kamara get the touches that he deserves. He is a horse, whether it's catching, whether it's running, they need to get that guy the ball. So he needs to see more touches. The next game we have is the Panthers at the Giants. Giants are favored by 2.5 points. Over under is at 43. Oh my God, I don't even know where to begin. I didn't think I would have so much to talk about. Good thing we already talked a good amount about the Panthers, so I can focus a little bit more on the Giants. Saquon Barkley, man, like, come on, welcome back to the NFL. So happy for him. I was telling Sweetheart last week, my goal into going into the 2022, yes, NFL fantasy leagues were to get Saquon and Swift back to back. You know, that's why I kept asking to trade for late round picks. Just trade everywhere. Nobody would do it. I don't think anybody's going to trade me anything anymore. I just think I'm up to something, which I may be. But you know, so that was my goal. And man, Saquon out here, just like, you know, he's got a little bit of a revamped line. The main thing is he looks healthy. And they're like, you know what? As long as you're healthy, we're not going to go the CMC route and limit your snaps to keep you healthy. Like if you want to play football, here you go. Here's the rock. Here's a rock on a 2-point conversion to win the game. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of trust there. They love him. I think it's just going to be points after points after points every year, every week. He was a leading receiver in targets. You know, like he's the focal point of the offense. He is the new CMC. So we'll see how long he can last. That's the main thing. And I'm also staying away from all Giants wide receivers. You know, there's not enough evidence to say this guy, that guy. There's no like a, you know, rapport. Sure. With any receivers, right? And you're just like, what am I doing here? Why am I even? There's 31 other teams to choose wide receivers from. Let's let the Kadarius Tonys do Kadarius Toney things, and I'll just sit over here and not enjoy those points because I don't want them. And you know, they didn't even utilize him properly. He had like 2 carries, and those are like some of their 2 biggest plays of the game, and they just didn't use them. So I think they're going to figure that out. They're probably going to use them a little bit more. Oh yeah, and it was Richie James who led in targets. It wasn't Saquon. Richie fucking James, right? Like who knows who that is? Not 99% of the world. So you know, Giants pass rush looked pretty anemic. That there was nothing really going there. But their run stuffing was on point. You know, they held Derrick Henry in check most of the game, if you want to call it that for Derrick Henry. Seemed like a pretty, you know, minute style game from Derrick Henry. So yeah, I'm watching for that. I'm seeing if the Giants are going to, you know, put any pressure on Baker Mayfield. Because if you don't put pressure on Baker Mayfield, he somehow looks really good. And that just means CMC gets more open, wide receivers get deeper down the field. It could be a lot of points for Baker and the gang. So, you know, I think this is a CMC bounce back week. They're going to realize, whoa, what are we doing here? Look at Saquon. We're going against this guy. Let's try to bring our own Saquon out here. And I think this is just going to be a battle of running backs. They're going to have a lot of points. We're going to get to see a little bit more clarity on Robbie versus Moore, just to see who he relies on more. That was kind of a weird game for both these teams last week. So I think we're going to get a little bit more clarity on the situation. Like I always say, I think I said a lot last year, week 4 is when you start making decisions for your team. Weeks 1 through 3 is just swifting through the waiver wire, making your team the best possible candidate to win later in the year. You do not make decisions weeks 1 through 4 weeks 1 through 4. You should have done that in the draft. That's what the draft is for. Yeah, and just last point about the whole running back thing, right? It's such a double-edged sword because I was of the opinion that you try to prolong the shelf life of like elite running backs, but then you also have like running backs just literally come and go every year. Running
Yeah.
backs values are so much lower. You can get them in like the second, third, fourth, fifth round of like not fantasy drafts, but like actual NFL draft,
Yeah.
right? So even the NFL is not valuing a lot of running backs as like first round talent anymore. So it's almost like I like what I see from Saquon. Maybe it's partially because I have him in one of my leagues, but it's also like I'm of the opinion that we know that his span in the NFL is going to be pretty short as it is. Like, let's try to maximize what we can while we
Yeah.
can, because chances are, even if you tried to
Yeah.
baby him and all this crap, like he's probably still going to get hurt, and it's only
Right.
going to probably prolong his career like one extra year, if that, right? So is it worth trying to like be sporadic and seldom and pick and choose where you play him?
Right.
Or do you want your best player to get on the field and touch the ball as many times as possible? So I
Exactly.
absolutely love kind of how they used to use CMC. It was weird to see them not use him now. Like, looking back on it, yeah, he got hurt a bunch of times, but I don't know if that's necessarily like the usage, because like the production was always there because he was so good. So like, why would you not give somebody that's that good the ball just to risk the fact that they may get hurt? I mean, that's the sport, right? The sport,
Yeah.
you can get hurt not touching
Any
the football
play.
too.
Any
Yeah.
play.
So I agree. I hope they continue to use Saquon this way, because who knows how long he even has left in the NFL. It's crazy to say. So hopefully both of these teams can be like, it can just be a battle of CMC and Saquon, because that'd make a huge, like a lot more fun game to watch than Daniel Jones versus Baker Mayfield.
Right.
All right, next up, we've got the New England Patriots going to Pittsburgh to play against the Steelers. New England's favored by 1.5 points, and the over-under is 40.5. Some fantasy implications. You've got the running back situation in New England. So Stevenson versus Damian Harris. And it looks like now that Ty Montgomery is injured, I think that they'll have a little bit bigger role in this offense, because last week was not looking good for the running backs. Stevenson had 3.7 points, half points, and Damian Harris 6.8. But Damian Harris averaged 5.3 yards per carry. So moving forward, I think he should be the guy. Sample size was low because they were passing the ball more often. But I think that they're going to be a run-heavy team. Because they don't have enough weapons out there. Devontae Parker doesn't seem like the guy there. On the Steelers side, we already talked about Najee Harris being potentially injured. Got to get Jalen Warren if he does get injured. But you're another guy to kind of look at is Freiermuth. Freiermuth had 10 fantasy points at half-point PPR. Looks like Mitch Trubisky utilizes him, and the offense as a whole they use Gentry as their tight end and Freiermuth both. So those are two guys that you need to look into potentially starting, Jalen Warren and then Freiermuth. So the matchup, right? So Patriots need to do a better job of protecting Mac Jones. I mean, Mac Jones was getting pressured and sacked all of last week, all throughout the game, and so they need to do a better job there. And like I mentioned with Stevenson Harris, they need to do a better job getting their running backs involved. I think that's going to be the key to victory here. Same thing on the Steelers end. They'll need to be able to protect Trubisky, so you can utilize his weapons in his wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Claypool, Freiermuth, all the guys we mentioned out. So the thing I want to end with is TJ Watt is out, as we know. His replacement looks like it's going to be Malik Reed. However, they still have Alex Highsmith, who had 3 sacks last game. They had Hayward. They still have Hayward. They have Larry Ogunjobi from Bengals and Tyson Lalu, who are all stellar defensive linemen. So I think that this game could definitely be won by the Steelers. Also, might be a homer thing to say, but it's a toss up. And Steelers, if they just show up on their offense, do a little bit better than what they did last week, have a strong chance to win this game.
I honestly agree with you. I saw this line initially and I was like, dang, Patriots favored. I mean, I get the Patriots. I mean, actually, I don't get it. Patriots are favored on the road in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh beat the Bengals week 1. I know that was a crazy game. It's hard to take away from that, the fact that the Steelers are for real or anything like that, because it was kind of such a wonky game. But Steelers at home, I just don't know. That line is so sus to me that they would be underdogs at home. I think it's really ultimately just because of the quarterback. And, the Highsmith stuff, like, yeah, 3 sacks is great, but 3 sacks is probably a lot easier to obtain when TJ Watt's getting double teamed on the other side, and you're probably getting single teamed most of the time. So now with no TJ Watt, that's when you really want to see like which one of these guys is going to actually step up, because everyone's probably going to get single teamed. There's not going to be anybody that deserves or warrants getting double teamed. Maybe Cam Hayward back in the day, but he's getting older too. So It'd be nice to see Highsmith have something like that without TJ Watt playing in the game, because Shoshone and I talked about, he's one of the best football players, not just best like defensive line players, whatever. He's one of the best football players in the NFL. So the impact he has is like Aaron Donald-esque almost, right? So it's a big loss when he's not on the field. It's like a guy you have to game plan for, and typically you don't game plan for defensive players. So that's why I think it's going to be really, really important for them to get pressure. But if I'm a betting man, that's funny. I am a betting man. So I would absolutely take a flyer on taking Pittsburgh at home as underdogs money line against, it's not like a juggernaut of a team that's coming in. The Patriots look bad. No. Their offense is bad. Like, I absolutely think betting the Steelers money line at home is worth the risk 100%.
I agree with you guys. I do have to add one thing, because I think it's a pretty big reason why this line is minus 1.5 for the Patriots. And I think the Patriots run game is really good. It's really good. Like Shova mentioned, what you should have added is that in the first quarter, they were running at will when the game first started, right? And then it kind of got out of hand. There was just Tyreek Hill all over the fucking field, and they just didn't know what to do. But the first quarter was totally in their hands. They were running the ball at will, and that's the one thing the Steelers can't do, is stop the run. And now when you lose TJ Watt, a lot of that energy that he brings, just the Steelers are going to be playing with a lot of fear. I want to say, like, what are you going to do without your best player on the field? Things are going to have to change a little bit. And I think that's why I think that the plan is for the Patriots to just run. And I think that's the one team you want to do that against is the Steelers, because, they haven't really improved much on the run stopping. Mixon had his day catching passes out of the backfield, running left and right. And last year, what we saw at the end of the year, the Steelers weren't doing much stopping anybody. So I think that is the main focus here. If there's like a theme in the game, is Steelers have to stop the run and Patriots have to run the ball. So we'll see what happens.
I think that narrative is actually going to be tested, like because they got Miles Jack and they've kind of improved on their middle linebackers front. I feel like the run stopping will be a lot better this year. They did stop Mixon to less than like 90 yards. Like, he didn't have a Mixon type of game, right? So it's going to be tested. Like, it's a great running team with Patriots, but I think that the Steelers could handle that with the improved guys that they've gotten in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are both right. That was their biggest weakness last year. So I know they've made additions to try to improve that. Let's see if, again, against a team that likes to run the ball, they hope the game script is in their favor so they can run the ball, so they can utilize both their running backs, because like you said, they have no weapons on the outside. This will be a game where if Pittsburgh gets out to a lead early, it can look a lot like the Dolphins looked last week, where, Mac Jones isn't going to come from behind. But if the Patriots like milk 10 minutes off the clock in their opening drive and they run the ball and they have like 90 yards on 12 plays and they score a touchdown, then all of a sudden Trubisky's the guy that's going to have to try to come from behind. So it's just really game script's going to dictate how this game goes, in my opinion. But again, taking the Steelers at home as underdogs, money line, coached by Mike Tomlin still, like, I trust that team, that like I wouldn't be upset if I lost money if they lost. So again, it's a bet that I feel pretty comfortable taking. That takes us over to the Colts that are traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Colts on the road, favored by 4, over under 47. Colts coming off a very abysmal tie to the Texans, in which they had multiple opportunities to win that game. Couldn't get that job done. So they're going to look to try to get their first win of the season against the Jaguars. We're looking at guys that have now established themselves as elite. We already know Jonathan Taylor's elite. So it took him a while to get going week 1, but he ended up having like 31 carries, 166 yards and a touchdown. So like, he's basically back to last year's Jonathan Taylor. I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Michael Pittman finally emerged as a true number 1, at least in week 1, looked phenomenal. Again, another great draft pick for Shovit. So let's see if he can replicate that, if he can actually be that true number 1. I do want to see a lot more from Matt Ryan. I think a lot of people expected that he was going to elevate this offense in a way that Carson Wentz could not. But last week, they looked almost as if Carson Wentz was still running the show anyway. So I expect some subtle improvements there. On the Jag side, I think it's really important to note that we're going to be still looking out for this Etienne Robinson situation. A lot of people drafted Etienne pretty high. Etienne was drafted above Robinson in just about every league, and Robinson led the way week 1, right? And so we know Etienne's going to have to work his way into this rotation because Robinson's the proven guy. Etienne's basically a rookie because he was hurt his rookie season for the whole year. So we have to see if they're going to do kind of what me and Shisho talked about last episode. Is like, those two are probably 2 of your 3 best offensive weapons, not named maybe Christian Kirk. So find a way to get both of them on the field at the same time, right? Utilize your best players, put your best 11 on the field, give Trevor Lawrence the most opportunities, the most chances. Have basically, this reminds you of Madden, where you have 2 running backs on both sides and they both run like whatever that route is. Not even a wheel where you're going all the just like to the flats, right? So you basically have an option to go either which way. And I think, again, having your best players on the field is really important when you're a team that's still searching for its identity, that doesn't have a true number one. Christian Kirk's a great compliment, but I think it's really imperative that we see Etienne's usage just slightly bump up to where, people are going to feel comfortable actually starting him in fantasy. But other than that, again, I think Trevor Lawrence, I want the guy to be successful so bad. I was not really impressed with week 1. I know it's still 1 week, but now we're talking about a full season in 1 week, which a lot of times we can probably throw last season out the window, just given the shit show for the Jaguars, but it's still not like there's still plays that leave something to be desired with him, where it's not like he's making perfect passes and his receivers are dropping it, right? It's not like he's putting the ball in a perfect spot and his receivers running a bad route. He's just making mistakes. And I know that's going to come with time. He's still basically a rookie, but I don't know. I just kind of want to see a little bit more. I want to see this guy take the next step. I think we talked about it in the offseason. This is a guy that, don't be surprised if he jumps into like top 15, top 12 quarterbacks in terms of maybe fantasy, in terms of maybe just the NFL as a whole. But we need to see something to give that narrative more meaning, because right now it's just kind of still Clemson Trevor Lawrence in our brain and not NFL Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I do see a little bit of improvement, though. I do see, Zay Jones, who is a nobody, really. They paid him a large amount of money. He got a lot of targets, and, he used Christian Kirk as well, who is now looking like a true number one, getting 13 targets. That's like the most he's ever gotten in his life. So, when you can hold fantasy values for two separate wide receivers, you're doing something, right? The balls are going to the right areas, which was not happening last year. Last year was very, very sporadic. It was Marvin Jones sometimes. And so it was very sporadic. Laquan Treadwell. So now this game actually against the Colts, who are a top 5 defense. It didn't look like that last week, but on paper, they're a top 5 defense. And I think Shaquille Leonard is his new name. I think he comes back this week, and I think that's going to change the dynamic of that defense. And let's see if Trevor Lawrence can, outperform that defense. I don't think he can, but let's see. This is the fun part about fantasy, is we get to see some really, no-namer type of a quarterback. I mean, he's got a name, but from a fantasy perspective, we still haven't seen anything remotely entertaining from Trevor Lawrence going against a dynamic defense. Let's see if he can still do what he did last week and entertain points for these wide receivers. Next up, we have the Dolphins at the Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 3.5. Over under is at 44.5. I don't know about you guys, but I'm about to call. Hello. Is this animal control? Because we have a cheetah and a penguin loose on the football field. Somebody come get them. So the Ravens, they need to have animal control and speed dial. I don't know if this defense can hold. I don't know if any defense can keep up with these two wide receivers. They do two separate things, but they do them at similar speeds. Tyreek Hill can do pretty much any route. He's scared. People are scared of him for going deep. But Waddle looks like he's going to be more of a deep in and a deep out, deep slants. Just, add a deep in front and then add a route that's not a go route. And I think that's going to be like Waddle for the rest of the season. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be more of the screen passes, dump offs here and there, because he can quickly turn and go upfield better than anybody probably in the history of football. So by saying that, I'm forcing the Ravens to play better defense than they did against the Jets in the first half. I think the rain played a big role in the Jets' demise as well. The Ravens didn't really look as good as their scoreboard showed them to be. So those are some important things. We need to watch this game. Let's see if the Ravens can actually keep up with these wide receivers. And then the Ravens running backs, I'm staying away. Even if Dobbins plays this week, I am not starting him in my lineup. I need to just see what this scheme is. I need to see what they're trying to do, because that last game, they just kind of aborted mission after a while, and then later kind of just milked the clock with weird plays. Nothing really that you can take into week 2. I'm just crumpling that game up like the monsoon game and just kind of tossing it, because a lot of things didn't go the way that the typical Ravens offense goes. They didn't even look at, Mark Andrews for a significant amount of the first half. And they're coming out of the tunnel at halftime. They're like, oh shit, let's get the ball in our best player's hands. So, things like that, we need to just kind of make it a point to stay away from the Ravens running backs for now. Do not be sad if you drop Mike Davis and he scores 3 touchdowns this week. Just things like that happen. Do not let it affect you. Honestly, yes. Even though they have all these animals running around the field, the zookeeper is not very scary. that zookeeper is Tua, and he's pretty predictable in his ways. And I think being an opportunistic defense, the Ravens are, they can probably get some pick sixes here. So if you're really desperate and you're in a 12-team league and don't know who to start, even with these weapons I just mentioned, you might get away with starting the Ravens defense against the Dolphins. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm saying it. Let's see what would happen. This is only for desperate situations. There's going to be 11 other teams that you would much rather start. But if you're really desperate and playing against a guy in a league who has 3 defenses stacked, so you can't even, pick up valuable defenses like myself, you're going to have to resort to defenses like this. And I think this wouldn't be the end of the world if you went that route. And that's basically it. Andrews and Jackson are the only must starts outside of the animals I mentioned earlier. Chase Edmonds really, really making a case for a starting running back role. He barely ran the ball, but he caught a lot of passes, and that's what we want from our fantasy running backs. So let's see what happens. I think the Dolphins are going to get tested heavily here, and I think the Ravens defense secondary is going to get tested. Let's see who comes out on top.
Man, you guys are just name dropping all my players right now. You got Chase Edmonds, Tyreek Hill, heard of Michael Pittman earlier. This is great. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, that was me week 1. Yeah.
Enjoy the week, man. Just enjoy the week. It's 1 week at a time.
All right. Next up, we've got the Atlanta Falcons going to Los Angeles to play against the Rams. So some fantasy implications here. Cordell Patterson, who had 21 points last week, going to be a starter this week as well. Kyle Pitts, who only had 2.9 points last week, but hopefully they kind of get things figured out there. And the addition of Drake London, getting a little bit more targets, can take away the double team that was kind of inhibiting Kyle Pitts to produce. And Mariota, man, this team, like, low-key has like a solid red zone threat. With Mariota, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, if they can get to the red zone, I think I mentioned this before too. And then Young-Hoo Ko. I think that's the problem, right? Young-Ho Koo, solid, kicker to have on your team. 18 points last week. The bigger question is on the Rams side. We have Allen Robinson. Hopefully he gets his redemption game finally. That first week was just everybody but Allen Robinson was getting, targets. And then Cooper Kupp, he's facing AJ Terrell. So he allowed, he's not facing AJ Terrell. Cooper Kupp is facing.
He is facing AJ
Terrell. Yeah, he's facing AJ Terrell, who allowed 2 touchdowns last week. So
big time exposed.
Right. So look for Cooper Kupp to feast again this week. And again, the Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson situation. I don't know if you start Darrell Henderson right away. Maybe just kind of monitor that. I'm a little nervous about that.
Who would you? I mean, I can make a case for Henderson starting in the flex. Like, who are you debating between Henderson and who else?
Yeah, I mean, there's Edmonds that I could start over Henderson. And then there is, I'm Amon-Ra St. Brown that I would start as a flex as well.
Conversation's over.
Yeah, you start Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra is a must start.
He's a must start.
But okay, let's get into the matchup, right? So the Rams are going to be a pass first team, so look for them to start cooking against these Falcons. I think that they'll have a field day with the defensive backs. That it's just going to be overpowering as far as the matchups. With the Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, I think he'll have his day as well. But the Rams do have to work on getting more protection on Stafford. So this is crazy, right? He was sacked 7 times, and the Bills didn't even blitz 1 time. I don't know if you guys mentioned this last week, or yesterday, but didn't even blitz once, and were able to get to the to quarterback. So that needs to be figured out. Falcons had 4 QB takedowns, so that could be sort of the script that changes the outcome. But it's a long shot. I think that this is the Rams game to be taken. And so I think whether they cover that 10.5, it's going to be interesting, but they should win this game for sure.
Shova just low-key exposing his own podcast by admitting that he didn't listen to their last episode. Good work, Shova.
It was this morning that we posted it. Come on, give me some slack.
Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks traveling to take on the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are probably so excited that they no longer have to play in a monsoon. They get to play at home, favored by 9 points at home, over under 42.5. A little weird line considering how much the Seahawks overperformed week 1 and how shitty the 49ers looked. But that just tells me that Vegas just threw the monsoon game out the window. It did not mean anything. And obviously everything that, the Seahawks did, all that crazy win and everything over Russ and his homecoming, it's a great story, but I mean, I just don't think it's sustainable long-term. So Vegas feels the same way. Again, 49ers at home favored by 9. This is finally the week that we can actually look and evaluate Trey Lance. We can evaluate what Jeff Wilson's going to look like with no Elijah Mitchell. I don't know if Kittle's going to play. Kittle is just such a
I pretend like he doesn't exist anymore. I just pretend like he doesn't exist.
It's so sad because he's such a great player and he's freaking awesome, but he literally just cannot get out of his own way. So look for obviously more Deebo Samuel, hoping to get more of a chemistry built with Trey Lance now because, again, they're going to need to throw the football as much as they love to run. And then you're looking on the Seattle Seahawks side. Rashad Penny, to me, must start. I was rather impressed, although, the stat line's not super crazy with the fact that DK Metcalf caught 7 passes, because I couldn't even tell you a time DK Metcalf caught 7 passes from Russell Wilson last year. And that's how sad that is because I had DK Metcalf. So I think the fact that they were going to him as much as they did, it bodes well. I don't know that they're going to score a ton of touchdowns, but again, if you're in a half-point, full-point PPR league and you're desperate, DK Metcalf could be a flex start. So I don't know. I think I expect the Seahawks to be down a lot, so there is value there. Lockett didn't show a bunch or much really to warrant him getting started. So I think if you're looking at must starts, Penny's definitely a must start in my opinion. You can make the case to throw in DK in the flex. On the 49ers side, obviously you're starting Deebo, you're starting Wilson. If Kittle plays, you're probably starting him, and a lot of people are probably starting Trey Lance as well.
I would actually argue DK is a wide receiver 2 rather than a flex, just because he's unique. If he's getting this many targets, he's not like a player like Lockett who needs the separation to score. DK just needs the ball in his hands, right? And then he can literally run somebody over or run past them. He's like the fastest player on the field, and he's the biggest player catching any footballs anywhere around us. So just for that reason alone, I still put him in a wide receiver 2 territory. Maybe wide receiver 1. It's nice to see that much volume that we just did not see last year. The reason I drafted him his rookie year, the reason you drafted him last year was for these reasons, for this dynamic type of play call. You just get the ball in his hands and it's likely going to give you a lot of points, just that one play. So I think early signs of seeing that bodes pretty well. And Geno Smith being accurate and throwing as many times as they did, I kind of like it. I like this new Seattle offense, and I think I might be just shooting in the dark here, but I kind of value a DK a little bit higher.
Yeah, I think you could definitely make the case. I mean, 7 targets, 7 catches. That's pretty nice to see. Only 36 yards. So again, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot to do with who he was being guarded by, right? Patrick Surtain. So he did a good job of staying with them and then tackling him, not letting him break away. We can't say the same thing about other cornerbacks that are in the league. Will they be able to stop DK Metcalf? So there's a case to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see how kind of the season progresses. But the talent level warrants DK being a wide receiver 1. It's just production, quarterback situation. We'll see kind of where he ends the season at.
All right. Bengals at Cowboys. Cincinnati's favored by 7.5 and over-unders at 43. Man, you would think, if Dak Prescott was playing, it's a smash, right? Quick smash. But no, unfortunately, we're dealing with Cooper Rush again, who still gives me nightmares against the Vikings when he just manhandled us. That's how bad our defense was. No more. Anyways, I digress. Let's start off with some Bengals talks. Mixon looks good. That's who I think Mixon is. That is the player who I think Mixon is. I don't see Mixon as an over 100 runner. He does that, frequently, sporadically, 60% of the time. I wouldn't be surprised if he went over 100, but I kind of expect this 80-yard, one rumble in the end zone and catching 5 passes. That's who Mixon is in my head. He's got a solid ceiling just placed right there for me. So I think, going against the Cowboys, I mean, I'm not really scared right now. If I'm a Bengals owner, if I'm any weapon on the Bengals, I'm not scared to deploy against the Cowboys at this moment. I think Jamar Chase is going to just further humiliate this Cowboys secondary. Especially with Higgins out, where the target's going. Clearly they're going to Chase, as we saw last game. And then the one time they tried going to Boyd, or a couple of times, it was just a shit show, and one got picked 6 by Minka. It was just like a nightmare. So I think Chase and Mixon obviously are just close your eyes and start. CD, last game, a lot of people are kind of putting him out for trades already, however, I am not one of those people. Last time, at least for this game, last time CeeDee Lamb played with Cooper Rush, he was heavily targeted. He was probably the only person he targeted the whole game. So that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind when these quarterbacks that don't play or very often come into the play. They're kind of trained to go to the best player, go to the tight end, throw dump offs. And the last time Cooper Rush played with CeeDee Lamb, he threw a bunch of passes to CeeDee Lamb. I kind of expect a little bit of the same here. And Schultz, he's like the Kirk Cousins of tight ends. Nobody's going to be like Schultz is the best. Nobody's going to say Schultz sucks. He's just right there and he's going to produce. So those are some players. I would not think about benching CD. Do not do that yet. Wait till week 3. Wait till week 4. Make your decisions week 4. I don't know how many times I got to repeat that. Zeke, I think he should get back to double-digit fantasy points this game. Could be mainly because he actually didn't play bad last game. He just lost the opportunities, and he had ran 5 times. He ran 10 times for an average of 5 yards per carry. That's awesome. Just keep beating them. However, they couldn't. They fell behind, and then Pollard came in and took care of business. When especially it was like a futile process. Why waste Zeke's energy and chances of getting hurt? Let's see what Pollard can do. I think we're going to get double-digit points from Zeke, good amount of fantasy points. And I think it's going to be a McPherson day. Bengals D is also very intriguing here, especially because of the Cooper Rush situation. I have Bengals defense in the top 5 defenses this year at number 5 or at this week. So I think there's going to be a lot of field goals for McPherson. I think there's going to be a lot of points had on the Bengals defensive side. And that's pretty much where this game's at. There's going to be nothing flabbergasting. I don't see the Cowboys winning this game. I see them putting up a fight, but this offensive firepower that the Bengals have, that they just got humiliated by missing field goals and losing to Mitch Trubisky and all this stuff. They're Super Bowl, runner-ups or whatever. They gotta beat a hobbled up Cowboys, right? Like, in what world do we see the Cowboys beating the Bengals? Do you guys see a world where that could happen?
I honestly don't. I think the more you were talking about this, I was talking myself into the fact that the Bengals minus 7.5, even though it's on the road, like, for some reason just doesn't, like, it intrigues me. I think, a 10-point game would mean that this game was close. I'm personally, like, I don't know in what world Cooper Rush can try to make this game close when, Dak was so bad and they just don't have weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb, and like, don't show, like, the receivers are nobodies. Noah Brown is having to catch passes. So, and I think the fact that the Bengals lost week 1 in such a kind of a heartbreaking fashion, like you said, Super Bowl runner-ups, they need a bounce back game. I'd be hard pressed to believe that the Bengals can't win this game by 10 points. So I'm kind of talking myself a little bit into Bengals 7.5. I know that's a big line, especially for a road team, but the Cowboys are in shambles right now. And like, I don't know what can pick them up out of this, because they looked so bad week 1 with, like, that's the team they have, maybe outside of Gallup, right? That's the team they have. Dak is their quarterback, and he looked so bad. It wasn't like the Buccaneers were doing anything crazy. They just looked so out of sorts. Again, I mentioned it last week, CeeDee Lamb's body language. He was just such a freaking pissy, whiny every time he wasn't getting a ball that was catchable or thrown his way. And so I don't know what this team really has going for them. And we know that, unless Micah Parsons is going to get like 4 or 5 sacks, strip sack, fumble, return for a touchdown, like, I don't know, man. I don't see them scoring a ton of points. So Bengals minus 7.5, like, even if they win the game 10-0, I think it's a very realistic possibility.
Nice. All right. Next up, we've got the Houston Texans at the Denver Broncos. Man, I hate the Broncos. It's like that. I'm still not over that Monday Night Football game. But moving forward, the Broncos, Russell Wilson, he still scored, had 17.8 points, which is okay for QB1. And then Judy kind of stepped up. It looks like Judy's going to get more responsibilities. I like Judy over Sutton just because of that deep threat, and he looks like he can get more separation than Sutton can. And then Javonte Williams, man, that guy is a beast. Like, that guy is definitely a star running back in the making. So, those are going to be guys you're going to look at on the Broncos side. On the Texans, Brandon Cooks, although he had double-digit points last week, he's playing against the guy who was guarding DK Metcalf, Patrick Surtain, so he may not have that same it may be a little bit limited. So before you start Brandon Cooks, Dameon Pierce, so a guy that everybody wanted to, go out and draft. he did not get the ball fed to him, and I think that's just the script of how things changed. They had to throw the ball more, so they're wanting to give him the ball more. But when you have to pass the ball, Rex Burkhead is going to come in. So if they're down, it's going to probably be more Rex Burkhead action than Damian Pierce. So that's just what you get. All right, so. One thing I want to highlight, so I don't really pay attention to defensive fantasy football, but Kamu Grugier-Hill got 18 tackles, which was the most. I think that's like that's it's gonna be interesting to see if he does that this game too.
Yeah.
But that's a high number. He was like all over the field.
That's like number 1 overall IDP draft pick kind of player. That's crazy.
Yeah. The biggest question I have, like the biggest, I guess, talking point about this game is the fact that Davis Mills is just not getting any love whatsoever, right? 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 98.9 passer rating. Like, no matter what this guy does, like, nobody cares about him. And I think that this game, as the season progresses, like this is his time to shine. Like he's the play caller there. He's gonna, this is his team to take. So I want to see more of Davis Mills. I want to see them kind of expose this Broncos defense, just like the Seahawks did. Because what we're used to seeing from the Broncos, we didn't see that last game as far as the defense is concerned. So Davis Mills may be able to take advantage of that. Texans are still not good against the run. They allowed Jonathan Taylor to have 100 yards and a touchdown. So given what I said about Javonte Williams, I think that he might have another strong game here. So I think the Broncos bounce back from their loss. But I think this is closer than that -10. So I would take the +10 just because I think the Texans are a little bit more than they get credit for.
Yeah, I think that there's a world in this game where maybe you could even look to start Melvin Gordon if you're desperate, just because he's getting touches. They like him, and they like him in like very, very
critical situations.
Critical situations. Thank you. Like goal line situations where he can get points very, very quickly. Like for whatever reason, even though Javonte caught 11 passes, even though Javonte looks insane when he touches the football, we can't be the only ones that see that, right? Their coaches, their ownership, they're not blind. They see what they have in Javonte, but for whatever reason, they're trying to either keep him fresh. They think he's maybe best used when he's used sporadically. I don't know the situation, but I think based on the script, based on the fact that they do love to run the ball, based on the fact that Texans don't stop the run very well, you could see a situation where Javonte's getting a shit ton of yards, getting a bunch of catches, and Melvin Gordon could get 2 touchdowns. So I see a world where both of those guys are possibly startable. Next up, we have Arizona going to Oakland, 2 teams that are 0-1, not Oakland, Las Vegas. I forgot that they moved. Las Vegas, They're going to Las Vegas. That's worse. That's actually worse because they're probably going to party and suck even more. So Kyler Murray and gang, 0-1, going to Derek Carr and gang, 0-1, right? Derek Carr and gang have Devontae Adams. There were weird rumors today that Josh Jacobs was on the trade block. I don't really know if there was much to that because like their running game is already so bad. Like, who are they going to start? Zamir White, the rookie? Like, I don't really know what they're looking to do there. But the things I'm watching out for are obviously offensively outside of Devontae. If Devontae keeps cooking, he gets his. Who else is there? Like, who else is there? We talked about it yesterday or last episode. When you look at the box score and you see Devontae put up the numbers he did, knowing that Derek Carr's his quarterback, you would have thought Carr and the game, the overall outcome was so much more different than what actually ended up happening. So we need somebody else to step up there to kind of help Devontae, help Derek Carr a little bit. Is it going to be Waller, Renfro? They have people to step up. So that's what we're looking for the Raiders. At this point, honestly, I mean, if you have a Raiders running back, I think like it's just like it is what it is. Like you may just be forced to start them as a flex because they're a starting running back and it's Josh Jacobs. But I don't really know if you should have any expectations that like more than half of the games this season, your Raiders running back is going to get keep you satisfied. Like, I think you're going to be more disappointed than happy if you look at this entire season and you started Josh Jacobs. So I think it's just one of those things where like you were forced to draft him either because you didn't go running back heavy earlier or he's just kind of a depth piece for you, but you know what you're going to get. Just don't be so high on Josh Jacobs because I just don't think it's there anymore for him, unfortunately. And then looking over on the Cardinals side, guys, we need a bounce back. This team, they looked really bad. I know they're missing weapons. They've kind of been on this downward spiral since the midpoint of the season last year, and week 1 did them no service. Obviously, it doesn't help that they had to play the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, but this is an opportunity for them to bounce back. But I could say the same thing about the Raiders. Both of these teams are looking for a bounce back week. So who's going to be the shittier of two evils here and allow the other team to actually bounce back and go 1-1? One of these teams is going to start the season 0-2. I think the Cardinals have a better opportunity to bounce back if they start the season 0-2. The Raiders are playing in such a ridiculous division that if they start the season 0-2, it's going to be so damn hard for them to claw back. So I think it's very, very important that the Raiders somehow come away with this win. They're playing at home. They're favored by 6, over under 51.5. So I think those are the things that I'm watching out for here.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals just sucked last game. They just played so bad, and it sucks that their best weapon is Marquise Brown. Like, it's somebody that we've just like gashed on for dropping passes for the last 2 years or whatever. I mean, that's his most reliable receiver. I mean, not according to the stat sheet, but just like theoretically. And that kind of sucks for Kyler. Kyler's points are very, very limited just because of the weapons that are around him, and he's gonna have to run. That that's just a fact. And the Raiders definitely have a more fire-powered offense. You said who else is there? I mean, Hunter Renfrow is still there, right? He's still, a lot of defensive backs like highly commend Hunter Renfrow. I watched some interviews where Darwin James was like, someone else was interviewing him. I think the former Steelers guy, Clark, he was interviewing Ryan Clark, and he was interviewing Darwin James. He's like, what do you think about Hunter Renfrow? And he's like, ooh, that dude's good. And then Clark gave him shit for saying that. And then Darwin James like, you must not watch any film then, man. Because like these players that play the sport know how good Hunter Renfrow is. They just weren't able to use him for whatever reason. There was no JC Jackson. I don't know who was covering these players, but they basically just shut down everything, let Devonta Adams do things. And it kind of worked out in their favor. I can't say the same for the Cardinals. Their defense still sucks. They probably have, top 5 worst secondary in the league. They're going to get demolished. I see this as a handsome win for the Raiders, unless Kyler Murray does some crazy 40-point fantasy performance running for 100 yards or something like that. Just you have to do something else. You have to do something that I cannot predict at this very moment. Because if it's things that I can predict right now, I don't see a world where the Cardinals win this game with a bad defense and a messed up offense and a really good quarterback. You can have all the quarterbacks you want with all this stuff around you. Raiders are still the better team. And that takes us to our Sunday night football matchup. Bears at Packers. Green Bay is favored by 10 points. Over-under is at 43. What do you guys want to see this game? I don't know, but what I want to see this game is some Fields action. Let's see what you can do, Fields, on a non-water heavy field. You know what I mean? Like, let's see some more throws downfield, things that I want to see, why I should pick you up from the waiver wires. Why are other people so high on you? Let's see this moment happen in front of a Packers team who is just under construction right now. Not sure what's happening. They were supposed to be the best team in the best defense in the league. And the Vikings just tore them apart last week. A lot of, first week stuff. I'd always say, don't get hung up on. It's for moments like this. I'm pretty sure last year the Packers got demolished by the Saints, and where Jameis Winston threw like 5 touchdowns and 150 yards or something crazy like that. So things like that, first week jitters. If there's one team that can overcome those things, it's the Packers. So let's see if they can contain Fields. Hard to say who his go-to guy is. Probably Cole Kmet at this very moment, but Mooney's still there. There's other weapons emerging left and right. So let's see Fields. Let's see what you can do, right? And another thing is, Packers hit Kirk Cousins 8 times. He's just such a good quarterback that didn't matter. But they hit him 8 times. That's a large, it's a big number of times to hit a quarterback. If that happens to Fields, I don't know if that's the same outcome. Then we're looking at a whole different Packers defense, and you're commending the Packers defense. So, but he does have the legs to evade these kind of pressures. So I think there's gonna be a lot of Fields running around, making big plays, like the play we saw him make to the right side of the field when he was running to the left. I think it's gonna be a lot of those kind of things. Packers are gonna be scratching their heads, but at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm still hoping Aaron Rodgers figures this out. For my Vikings' sake, I hope he doesn't. But from a respect standpoint, I want to see what you can do with these shitty receivers. Do you want to be called better than Tom Brady? Well, here's your moment. Here's your moment to kind of make things out of shitty situations. Looking at the running back situation on the Bears side, Montgomery is kind of at his last chance university mode. Herbert's knocking on the door. He's playing pretty good football, and he's not that big of a back, but he can make these plays happen with Fields. What a good fast quarterback needs is another fast running back to just dilute that field even more for the rush to kind of be more aware of which direction to go. If you have a fat running back who doesn't go very many different directions and you have a fast quarterback, it's easy to just kind of let the running back go and put a slower guy on him and then focus more on the quarterback. So, Herbert would change that game script completely. So he would make things harder. So I hope they use a little bit of Herbert to kind of throw off the Packers defense here. And I just talked about the Rodgers bounce back scenario. I mean, if Lazard is back, he's kind of going to have to be immediately thrown into your flex spot at least. I'm pretty sure he's just like Rodgers is probably begging him, sending him 14 missed calls saying, please come play, because they need him. They need him. And if Lazard does play, if there's signs of him being probable, he should not be on any waiver wire moving forward. He should be stacked on every team, at least on the bench, just to see what could happen. And I think good things will happen. Green Bay running back situation is very weird. Last week, Jones actually saw the field more than Dylan did. However, Dylan got more of the important carries. He ended up, touching the ball more. So I think that game script will switch. We talked about this last week. It was more because Rodgers needed protection, right? These linebackers are creating crazy havoc for him, and he needed the bigger Dylan to kind of protect in these situations, and nobody was open downfield. So he threw a lot of checkdowns to Dylan. I'm not sure if that'll happen again. So I expect Jones to kind of take the lead back role again. Although, Dylan is making a pretty good case to be a pretty good running back in this league. So the situation is still a little weird to me. There is a world where they both can handsomely be happy, and that could be now until this wide receiver situation gets kind of figured out. I think both of these running backs could have good days scoring over double-digit fantasy points. So at this moment right now, that is my analysis for the game. We will see if anything changes later on this week.
Man,
yeah, let's see if Christian Watson
Yeah.
actually gets playing time, or if Aaron
Right.
Rodgers has completely put that dude in the doghouse, because the look he gave him when
Wide
he dropped
open.
that ball, never threw him the ball. No, I think he caught one
Yeah.
pass after that, but dude, it was bad. It was absolutely
Yeah,
bad.
you
And-
can't do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, part of me definitely feels for him. He's a rookie receiver. He played at North Dakota. He didn't come out of a Power
Yeah.
5 school, or he's never really had that level of competition. So it is what it is. Hopefully he can bounce back, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers has some more reliable targets.
When you were saying about the Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert situation, you said it reminded me of a song. It goes, "What a good quarterback wants, what a good quarterback needs." I think it was a
Wow.
fast quarterback once. He's a
Wow,
fast
Herbert.
running back.
Herbert in a bottle.
That's great. All right, so next up for the first Monday Night Football showdown, we've got the Tennessee Titans at the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are heavily favored by minus 10 points, over under at 49.5. Some fantasy things to talk about. Henry, the king, right? Derrick Henry had 8.2 points. Dontrell Hilliard had 20.4 points. Henry wasn't breaking tackles like he normally does, and maybe it's just the first game, might be a little bit overreaction, but nonetheless, Dontrell Hilliard is probably somebody you want to keep on your bench and stash just in case Henry does end up going down. On the Bills side, we saw what Gabe Davis, why he's a number 2, and Bills Mafia is raving about their number 2 receiver, and he's probably going to have a similar type of game this week too. So you got to feel pretty confident to start Gabe Davis. So in terms of the matchup, the Bills have a solid offensive lineman. They only allowed 3 pressures in the whole game against the Rams. However, David versus Goliath, Tennessee had 5 sacks last game, led by Bud Dupree, former Steeler, and but Tennessee's pretty bad at their third down defense. So they stopped the Giants they only stopped the Giants 2 out of the 10 times on third downs, while the Bills converted 9 of 10. So the Titans have an uphill battle against the Bills, as we saw the Bills how they defeated the Rams last week. And their Titans rush defense is really poor as well. It all comes down to the guy I just talked about earlier, Derrick Henry. If they can sustain long drives, kind of keep the clock going, get some slow down the pace of the game, I think that's the way the Titans are gonna win.
So you're telling me they're not going to win?
Well, see, the Bills only we don't really know how good the Bills' run defense really is, because the Rams only ran 20 times. So it may be one of those things that a little bit more exposure with Derrick Henry could expose this Bills defense. We don't know. They had the 7 sacks, 15 pressures. The Rams were passing the ball a lot. So that's going to be the game script for the Titans to be able to win, in my opinion, run the ball heavy and often with Henry. But it seems like it's going to be Bills. I mean, look at the line, right? -10. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. If there's one team I would be worried about, like just from a running standpoint, it's the Titans against a better team. But the thing is, the Bills don't believe in running the ball. I mean, they do, but they don't. Like their goal is just take the lead and just run off every time. And that does not involve running with the ball. Nope. They have Josh Allen, like your focus point is that arm. I think, in a world where the Titans could be up 14-0, at some point in the game, but the game's going to end 37-14. You know what I mean? Like, I think I see that type of, I see a very little chance the Titans can win. I will be very, very impressed if the Titans actually run the ball and prevail.
Yeah, I think similar to last year, I think there was a lot of times where we wanted to write off the Titans when Derrick Henry got hurt, when AJ Brown was hurt. They had no weapons. Like, Westbrook Ikine and freaking Dontrell Hilliard and Donta Foreman or whatever. Those were the guys that they were having to rely on, and Ryan Tannehill, obviously, and they were still winning games. So there's something to be said about that. But unfortunately, I am all aboard. Yeah, I am all aboard the Bills train this year. Like, just look at week 1. Bills were on the road against the Super Bowl champs. They hung 31 on them, beat them by 21. The Titans were at home against a Giants team that's been absolutely abysmal, and they couldn't take care of business. And the Titans have nobody on the outside. We talked about Kyle Phillips just showed he's kind of been breaking on the scene. But outside of him, like Robert Woods, 1 catch, right? Treylon Burks, 3 catches, but like nothing really impressive. And I
development. These are all development wide receivers. You need a couple of weeks, you need a couple of months to get things going. You can't throw in 2 rookies with a hobbled up Robert Woods and expect to win games but handsomely. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's why this to me, this seems like Bills at home, their opening home game on Monday Night Football against the Titans, who literally just looked pretty bad. Like, I am all aboard this Bills train. I want to leave it at that because I'll probably talk more about the Bills here a little bit later. Do you guys have anything else on this game?
Rest in peace to Titans if their focus is running the ball. God bless them.
This week is special because there is 2 Monday Night Football games. In the last game, they saved the best team in the NFL for last. So already the NFL knows what they're doing. They know that the Minnesota Vikings are traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles here. Rematch of the 2017 NFC Championship game where the Eagles absolutely just embarrassed the Vikings. So revenge game for basically half the roster is completely different coach, different regime. So nobody that's on the current team even gives a shit about 2017. But us fans, it's still looming large in the back of our brains. Philly is always a really, really tough place to play. That's why Philly is favored at home by 2, over under 51.5. Let's see it, man. This is my let's see it week. I know week 1, the Vikings beat the Packers. It was great. Vikings were at home. Home Minnesota Vikings football this year seems like a very, very tough place to go and play for road teams, even if it's Aaron Rodgers, even if it's the Packers. I don't want to take anything away from that victory, but playing on the road in Philly against a run-first team that has a number 1 weapon like A.J. Brown, it's a completely different animal than what the Packers are. The Packers are Aaron Rodgers. This is like, you don't have as good of a quarterback, but everything else about your team is better. So let's see it, man. I mean, they got great cornerbacks, Darius Slay, James Bradbury. We know about Justin Jefferson and his kind of breakout season that we expect in huge game week 1. They do a really good job on the defensive line of getting pressure on the quarterback. And so our interior offensive lineman, Garrett Bradbury, and rookie Ed Ingram were just getting manhandled. Tackles and the right guard, Ezra Cleveland, played well. But there's a lot to look at here in this matchup because these are 2 teams that all of a sudden look like, in a wide open NFC, it's anybody's for the taking. And these are 2 teams that are kind of getting floating at the top of the name. So I think this is a really big statement game for both of these teams. Eagles looked great, but they also let Detroit have 35 points, mount a comeback towards the end, and they're a run-first offense, right? And what we saw from the Vikings week 1 is they are going to throw the ball, and just because they're up doesn't mean they're going to start to run the ball. That means they're going to keep throwing the ball. So let's hope we can translate that same situation to this week and see if they can do that against a much better defense, a very, very hostile environment on Monday Night Football, like prime time and everything. So I think there's a lot of script here in terms of kind of the overall stature of the game. I think for fantasy implications, it's the usual suspect. You're starting Justin Jefferson, you're starting Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, maybe not this week just because it's on the road in Philly, but if you're desperate, there's a guy that you get to look on. Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, all must starts there. in my opinion. But everybody else is kind of up in the air. Is Adam Thielen going to, emerge back into a valuable fantasy starter at some point this year? Or is it just going to be he's the compliment and it's going to be the Justin Jefferson show every week? So I think those are kind of the things I'm watching for. I think for this game, it seems like the guys that are going to be relevant in fantasy are kind of set in stone. I'm not expecting like a big emergence or some kind of surprise here, unless again, Thielen or KJ Osborne or somebody kind of steps up and has a random outburst. But the matchup itself, the two teams going against each other, this is a very, very big game because these are two teams that I'm expecting at the end of the season to be right up there, competing to make the playoffs, to win the NFC, and to fight for the Super Bowl.
I wish I could add to this, but there's really nothing to be said. But I don't think Thielen or KJ Osborne scoring touchdowns is like random. I fully expect that. I just think that first game we kind of just like let the Packers like put them on notice, like, hey, we have Justin Jefferson and you can't stop him. But there's definitely a world where Justin Jefferson doesn't score a touchdown that week. Like he'll get like 118 yards and like 8 catches, but maybe KJ Osborne gets 2 touchdowns and Thielen gets 1 touchdown. So yeah, just basking in the plethora of weapons that we have. It's just there's too many. There's a lot of weapons, and Eagles defense is supposed to be good, but they let the Lions just hang in there and come back. So I'm trying to get a little squinty eyes towards the Eagles supposedly really, really good defense this year. Bradbury had a pick 6. That was an acquisition from the Giants. He 88 to higher overall player in a cornerback position is valuable. They got him and Slay there now. So how is that going to shut down the Vikings weapons? We're very fortunate to have Dalvin Cook and Madison and all these other guys play in the middle of the field, even if they try to shut down the outside. So, I truly believe the Vikings are unstoppable in offense. There's just too many weapons. If they put a lot of pressure, Kirk is going to be the limiting factor. He can't get out of the pocket. So if there's pockets collapsing, that should be the focus of every defense, is to collapse the pocket, right? Because he can't scramble out of there. So that's what I expect from the Eagles with this strong defensive line. They just got a big ass dude in Wyatt. What's his name? Davis.
Jordan Davis
from Georgia. He's a powerhouse. I can see the middle of the line just getting overpowered and things going haywire.
Him and Fletcher Cox. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty big dynamic duo there.
And we may have a reputable, like a startable offensive line, but they're not good. It's not a solid offensive line. So I expect a lot of weird plays. I expect a lot of Justin Jefferson coming out of the backfield. I expect a lot of dump passes, just to expand the field. Maybe let them blitz. Maybe let them blitz up the middle. Make them think they're coming up the middle and then just throw it right over their head to the running back or tight end. So, I expect Vikings to do Vikings things. I expect the Eagles to do Eagles things. So that's why this is a Monday Night Football game. This game is going to be pretty fun to watch.
That's going to be it for the rundown, guys. Let's end the episode with Moneymaker. This week, I have one play so far and one play only. Again, I talked about it last episode. I really, really like prop bets. So as I get to look into more prop bets and decide I want to take them, I'll try to tweet them out at Only Playbook. So check us out there if you're interested in any of the bets. But in terms of kind of spreads this week, I'm looking at the Bills. I've already talked about it. I'm all over them. Bills at home, -10. It's a big spread, but right now the Bills seem unstoppable. It's 1 week, but it's not 1 week. This is the same team from last year, only slightly better, slightly hungrier. Last year, they have a sour taste in their mouth with the way it ended. So I am like all aboard this train and drinking the Kool-Aid. And there's really no reason not to, right? I mean, they played that way week 1 against the reigning Super Bowl champs. And again, it's just 1 week. And I know this team is destined to, look into the future in the sense that they want to win a Super Bowl, right? So in order to win a Super Bowl, they have to take it week by week and win every game. And the Titans just don't scare me right now. Derrick Henry's still not 100%. They're still building him back up. And outside of Derrick Henry, they really don't have anybody. So I just, unless the Bills play an incredibly sloppy football game, I just don't see a world where the Bills can be stopped and they don't put up like double digits, like 30 plus points or something like that. So I'm going to ride with the hot hand. The Bills were good to me last week, covering the 2.5 point spread on the road. This week, I'm going to take a -10 at home against the Tennessee Titans. And that's the episode. You have anything to add, Show?
No, I was going to say, we talked about every single player on Shovet's team except for his kicker.
Who's your kicker? Rick McManus?
McManus, yes.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. Another solid kicker who you would have probably had double-digit points if he had made that final kick that they decided to kick from 64 yards. My buddy in my other league lost because he lost a negative point there. So he lost by like 0.4. It was so ridiculous.
Wow.
On a 64-yard field goal attempt. Anyways, yeah. That's the episode, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be back to recap this week sometime next week and obviously do a preview episode. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram at The Only Playbook, Twitter at Only Playbook, TikTok at The Only Playbook. If you're watching on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for all the support. If you're listening to any of the podcast platforms. We're everywhere. I'm Sweetcar. That's Shovit. We're The Only Playbook. Enjoy your football week. We will see you guys next week.